So here I am starting the game of Macher, and I'm just working on that setup part because it's done in several phases, and I didn't want to step in and do my thinking aloud on the camera as I sometimes do, and I go with what happened instead. This isn't too key to the game because this doesn't, in the sense that this isn't going to be the normal mechanism, so I don't want to go into too much detail of this. This is just the setup round. So I've got 15 of these meeting counters that I have to put in play. And I seem to have too many yellows still. I'll have to recount. But anyway, yellow went first. This was completely random. And then we went counterclockwise as I like to go for whatever reason from there. So yellow looked at their options and said, I match best with that second campaign, and put all their points in there, laying down a marker. Now, black also said, I work well with this. This could mean that there's going to be a coalition, a yellow-black coalition in Berlin as an offer. Prevent them from having to fight over it. They'll both score lots of votes, and it'll be no problem. Berlin will go over to them, and they both get kind of a leg up on the early elections. That may be where they go. One question in the game is whether or not there's going to be negotiations. The game rules don't specify that there are, but they kind of allow for it, at least in the version that I have. I think that may have been added by the translator, but the notation that, hey, it's a very different game if you don't allow. If you play this kind of like, well, one of my friends over online, Clearclaw, who plays all the Winsome and 18xx games without any discussion because it's not specified in the rules that you should. To me, a political game almost demands that you have that, but again, it doesn't appear to be a part of the rules of the game, and it would be a very different game where you're making these offers without discussing them, and probably a faster game to boot. Okay. So let's look. Yellow and black, we've discussed their first 5 token play. Green's first 5, well, they match fairly well with that first one, laying down a marker on that, getting the election there. If they look like they're powerful in that, it will drive everyone else away. So they placed there because they do fit in nicely with it. And then finally, red looks best on the tail end of these. The ones that haven't been completely revealed. But he's got markers, or he's got connection with the 35-hour work week, saying no to that. They both are very much against that. And he also, nope, that's all he has. So that's kind of an issue there. Other people, well, one is Proposition 218, which is, I guess, the abortion clause in the Constitution, or he's opposed to that. They're in favor there, so he's less likely to be interested in that election. Just a lot of different connections there that have to be made and try to determine, hey, where do I best suit? Where should I be competitive and where do I not worry about it? Because it is a parliamentary election, which means that if you do very well in a region, you might end up with more power in that in the central government than if you try to play for all regions. And I believe the game reflects that well. We'll see. So I'm going to continue with the placements, and we'll come back after I get all that placement done with further discussions perhaps. Okay, let's just back up a moment. I screwed up. I placed everything and then went back to the rules and saw, campaign meeting. Those were the campaign meetings I was placing. It's the votes themselves. So I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go with kind of the same kind of feel, though. Yellow's looking and saying, hey, I'm doing pretty well. Now, votes go 5 at a time, so he's just going to drop 5 here. Black's going to do the same. We're going to pull the votes that we saw before, and now red went... Oh, yellow and black went here, I believe. Let's make sure I get those right, because they want to do that. And red said, yeah, I want to build up some votes here. All right, and I'll continue with that, and then I'll place the campaign meetings, and I'll come back. The campaign meetings are going to go 3 at a time. Campaign meetings actually are more important for here, but having seen where people are valued, I think that's where they want to throw their votes early on, even though they can generate more votes at other times. Kind of paying attention to what other people have as their platform is going to help you decide, can I compete in X, Y, or Z? I'll come back after those, and in fact the media tokens as well, in order to see where people are going to be. So that initial setup was informed by my failure, with the players kind of saying, I'm going to concentrate, try to win something, because it looks like winning is the important thing. Winning a region rather than having sort of a broad base of support. I may be very mistaken here, but that's what it feels like to me. So Green, for example, who I think went first with their points, concentrated and put all 15 of their initial votes here, where they could grab more votes very easily. However, as they saw no one was competing with them, they set up their new votes for another section to compete in that. Not one that they're anywhere near as comfortable in, but they figure by skipping one election, the hotly contested yellow-black one, where really all their points went into that second Berlin election. And they're going to probably fall into a coalition there. But they couldn't come to any necessary agreement. Basically, whoever had to place next, nobody blinked. I'm playing kind of a not a lot of discussion in terms of that. So you're faced with a prisoner's dilemma type of situation where you can't guarantee that the other guy's not going to try for a win on his own. And if he doesn't put a party member, a person there with a K, there's not going to be a coalition. So over to Red. Red started building up here and had to continue doing so, abandoning the votes that they initially cast and the power they put in the 4th slot. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of focus in particular ones. Media tokens, where do you think you're going to win first? Well, Green wants to get a media token into Bonn, and the best way to do that is to take the election that they're going to do and push it in there. Even though media tokens are useful in the current election, hey, I want to get that moved up there. Likewise with some of the others. Now, he's not going to get a lot of votes in Baden-Württemberg, and this is kind of the questionable thing. What if he had put all his tokens there, all 9 tokens here, and converted 18 more votes? That would put him in the 30 range, give him a higher multiplier, more points moving to Bonn. I don't know how that's going to work out and whether these decisions, were the best ones. I think it takes a little bit more experience or a lot more pre-thought calculation that I didn't really want to do. Basically, I'm just giving this a trial run here, see how it works out. Okay, well, it looks like we're about ready to play. That's the setup. Ooh, and now we're going to go to the normal sequence with the party conferences as an option. Do you need to realign your party stance somewhere? That's a hard decision to make when you don't know what you're doing, really. And then on to the other aspects of the turn. So now entering into the first of the real actions within the game after that setup. It's the first campaign sequence. First action that's taken, Green made the decision to blow one of their party conferences. This cost them $500, which they spent. And what they're doing is they're pulling out and switching their position on the 35-hour week. Instead of being in favor of it, now they're going to oppose it because of the 2 cards, the 2 elections coming up that are opposed to it. They want to make this shift early. They want to be in a position to win these elections if they can. Putting them kind of in even position with red and yellow towards that. Although, no one else can grab that position. There's only 3 of each position in the deck. So they're going to put this back. Now they got to actually pay to pick their choice in switching what their position is. This isn't their core one. They couldn't change that, which is the environmental issue. All right, I'll look and see if anybody else wants to do that kind of move, but I doubt it at this point. That was the key. Yeah, this really helps you. The next action is deployment of the shadow cabinet, the cards from your party leaders. Everybody pretty much passed on this. Because yellow passed and didn't put someone out, black chose to put this guy in place. And he paid his 500 bucks for him, and now he's going to do a smear campaign against the yellow with that and trigger so that yellow's votes will be worth less. If yellow had played a card, black would have probably played someone there to try to form a coalition. But they don't have that option right now. Okay. So now, turning the trend disc. There we got that. There's no coalitions to form. So now it's time to buy media, and everybody's going to get the chance to buy media tokens at 400. We'll see how that works out. Media was purchased. Green already had one in the one, but everybody kind of wanted to spend to get that additional media spaces. It seems like a waste not to. Although money must be limited, the media tokens seem to be important towards changing the moods of things. Yellow chose to go for the last one, which gave black the edge here. Red upped theirs. Green took some media in there in case they can manage to get a coalition win or something, or just beat red outright somehow. But kind of the idea, nobody wanted to pick up the NATO yes card, which is the only thing that having the advantage helped with at this moment. Now, it will help in terms of not being able to be turned negative. For example, if yellow had had a clear advantage on black, they couldn't have been turned down in the way they were. Then we bought campaign meetings, and again, it seemed worthwhile to buy your maximum. In this case, they each had 6 tokens. Well, they can put 4 per area max, but they each spent their 600 bucks and filled things out. Starting again with green. Green decided to plop one in there. I'm not sure quite why. Fill up where they're competing, add some into the last one. Red, again, fill up where they're competing, add into the last. Yellow said, I don't think it makes sense not to completely fail to participate anywhere because there's this multiplier for mandate. I'm going to put a token in there. And black said that's a good idea and kind of followed suit. Yellow also dropped their token in here. Black's not willing to commit to that one yet, but they do want to, they're holding their interests open there because it does seem like it might be a bad idea to leave it completely blank the way red has on that first election. All right. Now we're going to go to the opinion polls where people have a chance to bid, and I've got to shuffle that deck up on whether or not they want to try to harm, help, whatever others. We'll see what that goes with. So in the first race, Green's got such a clear lead, nobody wanted to buy any opinion polls there. In the second one, though, black and yellow are neck and neck in this one, and there's already some bad blood because of this smear campaign. So the bidding went, and black ended up bidding $500 or Deutschmarks or whatever on this one, and that was an amount that yellow was unwilling to spend. They were happy to go. Actually, they weren't happy, but they were okay with 400. 500's too much. So black is going to get 1 draw for that. Yellow wanted to take 2 to have some guarantees. Now, here's what's the problem. I can help the I must choose one, or no, I don't have to choose anything. I can help the FDP and the CDU. Well, I am the CDU, so I will help them, and I'm going to publish this poll. FDP is my buddy, the yellow player. Well, he's not going to get helped here. So the CDU is going to go up. And now I have to send somebody down. That's either SPD or green. Doesn't really make much difference there. I wish these were color-coded, so I can't remember. I know the colors are important, but I can't remember which one's associated with which. Okay. So, green looks like it's going into two big elections, I'm going to diss them here as well and give them a big thumbs down. So now this is cool because from Black's point of view, these votes are halved, so Yellow can't convert them as easily and probably will want to hold off. Whereas Blacks are doubled because they got their bonus. They get to crank their votes through and then maybe put more in if they need them, if it looks like Yellow is going to be competitive. But Yellow probably can't put its votes in. I'm going to go to the bidding for the next two sections, see if those also generate any issues. And indeed, polls were bought in each of the others, two each. The last one was fairly cheap at only $200, $100 per. This one I think went for $200 each. Red was able to boost themselves up, and they sent Yellow down. Red probably should have been less interested in bidding because they couldn't be knocked down. But hey, they want to score their points at double value, so what the hell. And then over here in this one, well, Green was able to get this rather cheaply, and they sent Red down along with it. They couldn't have hurt Yellow on that one. Now, after those polls, we go to the regional assessment, which is where players have to make the choice district by district. Not the first one, though, because that one's going up for an election. Whether or not they're going to convert their meetings into votes. We'll come back after that. Well, oh, what the heck. We can take a look at that. So, let's see. Let's take a look at the first one. I believe Yellow has to make their choice first because Green is the first player here. So, Yellow has a problem. They have NATO, yes. They have civil rights or whatever Freilichting Grudenordnung is, so that's 2 positive, and that's it. However, so they would have a ×2 multiplier, but they're halved because of the other. They'd like to turn that around. They don't think they can win if they're not scoring along with Black, so they're going to hold off. But Black, on the other hand, Black likes this. They have the 218, they have the NATO, and this, they have ×3 multiplier, which is huge, doubled, make it ×6. They're going to convert the whole pile of 10 votes. At ×6, that gives them 60. That puts them up to the very maximum. Well, they didn't need 60. They only needed 45. So they're going to keep some here just in case. 45, that makes 44. Yeah, they'll spend them all, get them all on the block, and get their points. And that's how we see that. I'll finish the rest of them and come back. So running through these, the votes were collected by those who could collect good multipliers. So for example, over here, Red, although they don't have a position on the 218, they do on the 35-hour work week, and they have a thumb up, so they're ×2. That was good enough. They put their 10 cubes in to grab 20 extra points. They can always cycle more. Now, like in this situation, they have an absolute majority, so they could actually swap out one of these positions from the election they're in for one of the ones in here. But there's only one in here. It's just the NATO yeah. They're not interested in that. So they're going to pass on that option. And likewise over here, Green scored only 4 cubes for 8 points, giving them an absolute majority as well. But they were also not interested in swapping out their vote, their point total. Red, with their decrease, their thumbs down position, didn't want to put their votes in. Likewise, Yellow and Green were kind of like, well, maybe I can score more, not pay $100 a block each time for 1 point votes. It's a hard decision making though, because you're allowing the other people maybe a chance to change something they wouldn't otherwise change. Red's got a dominating lead over here with all their points in it, and that's going to be hard to overcome. You kind of wonder about all Green's points in there. Okay, now we've got to go to the regional election, which is over here in Baden-Württemberg. And in this case, Well, the first thing we do is the regular vote conversion, but it has to happen here. So here, what do I have? I have 1. I have 2, so I'm doubled. I'm putting 1 cube in. I get 2 big points. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Yellow, well, do they have any of these? It looks like they're breaking even. Actually, they've got a penalty because they've got a NATO Ya, but you can't go below a 1 multiplier, so they've exchanged theirs for a vote. And then likewise, black is also in this position. They've got, the same penalty. They've actually got a double penalty on them. Triple penalty. They're really hated here, but they still get their vote off of it. Okay, now the winner here is unable to swap out an opinion, however. So now we're going to be calculating and doing some spreadsheet type work over here. And we just fill this out as Baden-Württemberg, right? And I'm using an art pencil so that I can erase it easier. Okay, CDU is black. They have collected a single vote. That gives them a mandate of 6 here. And then the U is the number of platform agreements with the regional. Okay, let's see what they've got. They've got a big negative. They've got 0 there. They're not going to be adding that into this. And then their total votes is 1, so they pull a net of 6. And I'll come back after I spreadsheet all of the points everywhere. So in a way, it's kind of a shame Red didn't play in this one because they had a couple of matches. They would have gotten an additional multiplier in. What we end up having, though, and I question the yellow and black enter into both of these because their mandate of 6, plus 1, okay, but they only end up, or times 1, they only end up with a 6 total. Well, let's take a look at what the Greens managed. Well, they had a mandate of 7. They were able to up their mandate slightly by having more total votes. They had, 17 votes, which gives them a little better than the 1 vote. But they also had 2 matches, great. And now that adds up to 9. 7 plus 2 is 9 times 17, 153 votes that they're bringing into Bonn. Pretty impressive, actually. They just won the regional election, hands down. And that means that they can move their media token to Bonn for that big victory. They can transfer 3 regional opinion cards to Bonn. That's big. But here's the negative to this. That means they're not going to be in here. I think I want to do this. I'm going to bring NATO 9. And I'm going to bring... I can't bring this, can I? That's one of the core ones. So I could bring something else with me. I don't terribly know that I want to or not. Yellow's got a big vote here coming up. I can't decide why I'd want to bring one of these others with me. But, I'm opposed to atomic energy, of course, because I'm the Greens, right? They probably don't like that. Do I really want to just stick things in that I don't know what I'm doing with? Yeah. I would rather do that for now. And these are going to go here. I could have moved a third one in. I don't want to do that. We'll put this up too. That seems like a green thing. And we see there are people opposed to it, aren't there? I wish I could get the standard work week no in place. All right. I'll just toss this here and say the heck with it. Okay. I can place a media token in Bonn. I can add bases. For each agreement between the party's platform and the federal, a base is added. Okay, so I should do that. Okay, so the net effect of that is red and green each got an additional base for being opposed to NATO. Nobody else had anything that's involved in this in agreement or disagreement with the platform. So now, the next thing we go to is campaign funding, and this goes to who? Well, 10 times the number of votes for Bond. Okay, so I've got to hand some money here, and that's going to be 60 rounded up as 100 each for the CDU and FTP. But this is going to make a lot. 10 times is 1,500, 1,600 he's going to be getting. So he gets a big inflow from winning this election. Okay, so now we're just got the campaign funding, but now it's time to collect the party donations. And this is kind of where the luck in the game comes through, really. I mean, not that there's not a tiny bit in the setup and in the cards here, but that's where this sucker comes up. And the weakest party, well, what's the weakest? It's a good question. In Bonn right now, I don't know what it means to be the weakest. The lowest votes is clearly the red player. The SPD has almost nothing. Well, they have nothing. But they're up one in party base. What makes you the weakest player? And that definition doesn't appear to exist in the game. Not in my copy of the rules, which seem to be fairly good. Now let's take a look, and I'll peek at the German rules and see if I can discern something out of them, but I really doubt it. So this is really tough, because to me, what I think it really means is I have to keep a running calculation of this sucker at all times. This is the only way to really determine what the strength is. And this is really not an easy thing to calculate all the time. Right now, with a big 0 at votes, red is clearly the weakest player no matter how you cut it. So they're going to have that first choice. And they're going to obviously take, well, maybe not obviously, but they're going to take the $500 with no risk option. They have a decent party base, so they don't want to screw around. Now the question comes to the next weakest. Well, that's either going to be yellow or black. They're tied in overall, no matter how you cut it. I roll a quick die, and I say black's going to be the weaker player. Now, here comes the question. Do they want to take a risk for some cash? Cash is important, and they have almost none. I think what they're going to do is they're going to take $2,000 for 2 dice. Money seems valuable. They'll roll the dice. And oh, they got hosed. They lose 4. Well, they only have 3, but their party has just basically undergone a scandal to demolish their party base. Now, well, yellow is the next weakest. Do they want to take one? They're going to take the risk of a 1, take $1,000. They have cash, but more cash is always a good thing, right? And they're going to see what happens to them. And they lose 1. And green, well, green pulled in some decent money, and they're kind of willing to hold off. They don't want to lose party base, and they're seeing the effects of this and are really worried about it. So they're done. Now the thing that happens is the board gets reset to where it was at the beginning before any of the setup. Baden-Württemberg, we're done with that. It goes away. These are going to come back. All these are going to shift down, and we're going to get a new one. In this case, it's going to be Hamburg, which is kind of a low point one. The mandates can be very high in some of these. I'll set that up, and I'll come back with the next turn on another video.